Is it listed as John Gillespie from Philadelphia?
It says John Guest. Okay, that is John Gillespie. Thank you.
Okay. I just have a question for the athletic council. With the number of votes granted by the bylaws to be 1/3 of the total number of votes, how many actual athletes does that represent? Because 1 for 1, our votes are equal to number of curlers. Are there actually 6,144 various athletes? And if so, is there an accountability for that and a public listing that we can account for that number to equate to the number of votes that are given to an athletic council that is directly supported by USA Curling and probably has their best interest at heart as opposed to the athletes themselves? That's question number 1.
I can answer that.
Could you, please hold, could you, what was the end, just the last piece of it, Mr. Gillespie?
Just asking that if there is a public record showing the total number of athletes, what that number really is.
The chair is going to ask Alex Agri from the AAC to answer.
Yes, hello, thank you. So the athlete votes in terms of representation at both board and members assembly requires that the athletes hold 1/3 of the votes that is defined in the bylaws and the Ted Stevens Act. And therefore, we calculate the votes as part of the members assembly, but the rest of the time in terms of like our board votes, we hold 1/3 of the seats. That's not possible due to the requirements to be a 10-year eligible athlete. There are not 6,000 10-year eligible athletes to hold individual votes at the members' assembly. It is calculated.
So therefore, the members that you are voting on or voting in favor of removing in the spirit of curling is nowhere close to the actual number of athletes that vote represents. Granted, we agree that it is in the bylaws, but everybody else that is voting has a direct member tied to that number. And that is where a question is concerning of what that actual number is of the athletes that are represented by the 1/3 vote of the AAC, because it is nowhere close to 6,144. And is there any public record of the number of athletes that are represented by the AAC in this vote?
We have not collected a count. I'll ask for Rich Brunin, who is our delegate, to answer the second question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just respond quickly. This is covered in federal law under the Ted Stevens Act. So it's as simple as that. It's also in the bylaws because we codified what's in the Ted Stevens Act. So I don't know what else we can say in that, but the athletes are entitled to 1/3 of the votes.
Grant, but understand that everybody else, and granted it's correct in federal law in the Stevens Act, but what is the actual number of the athletes? So that you can see where, one, they are directly and have these athletes or them themselves been polled as to what their representative votes are, or are you, who are, again, directly selected and supported by USA Curling, voting in the true spirit of curling and of the athletes themselves?
I can address that. I would like to, at this point, as you all likely know, I am the person that was chosen to be the delegate for the AAC, and this is Rich Runin speaking. I would like to read the statement that our AAC developed, and I think that answers your questions. Over the last few months, the AAC has had multiple conversations internally with athletes outside of the AAC and with non-athlete stakeholders across the curling landscape. Our conversations were centered around determining which option would be better for the future of the curling world in the U.S., with a focus on athletes. The AAC held an internal vote in which a majority of the athlete reps voted in favor of ratifying the board's decision to remove the GNCC as a member organization of USA Curling, and have decided to cast the entire athlete vote in favor of that ratification. So that is the statement, and my job here is to carry out the vote of the GNCC, and that's why of the AAC, and that's why we voted as such. Thanks.